yes, heritage is important. You'll see the cover letter to Dean from Kathy Powell. I don't include website hits as attendance, quite frankly, myself. I was more concerned over bodies going in the door, educational programs. I've heard from a number of teachers that it isn't even worth taking kids there anymore. I think over $500,000 for the bang for the buck the residents get, not people who come in from out of town going, but the residents get from the money we put into the museum is very little. So I'm sure you'll hear from Kathleen Powell tomorrow and the museum board and so on and so on. But I really think we need to take a serious look at asking them to do an operational review. That's a lot of money for so few bodies going in that door. And I think it's a colossal waste of our money, to be quite honest. And I also think we need to take a sober second look on the $2 million we've passed to go to the museum. I know we all voted for it when it was here. That was months ago. We weren't in the dire predictions that we're in now. Our predictions for lack of money aren't just 2009, they're 2010, 2011 also. That's money we have to borrow to meet matching dollars. I was glad to see the mayor in an article on last week talk about how the province and the Fed shouldn't be looking at the 1/3 from us. They should be putting it all in. Well, I agree with that. I think we really need to take a sober second look on something, again, that brings so few people in the door. It might be good for that window of time that they've asked us to apply for those monies for. I think it's 2012 to 2014. But what do you do after 2014 when we're counting on the residents to be the people to go through that? It's kind of like building an Olympic stadium that's not in use after the festivities are over. I think it's a lot of money to take a look at. So again, we can deal with that on February 9th and see whether in tomorrow's budget there's matching dollars from the federal government in there for this project, because if it's not, it's going to give us a harder kick in the pants to take a look at that $2 million. And in my mind's eye, you cut that $2 million out, we're down to a $1.9 million gap that we have to close, and to me that's a lot. And I just, this isn't, again, doesn't make us anti-heritage or anti-museum or anti-history. It makes us fiscally responsible. So I'd like to get more information on those things too and ask council to read it, and I will bring that motion forward at the next meeting. Okay, thanks, Councillor. I have a few members of council that wish to speak, and I'd just like to stick to one topic at a time. I have Councillor Diodati first, Councillor Wing, and then Mayor Salsi. So if it is on this topic, then by all means, please.
Mr. Chair, yeah, it is on the topic of the museum. I just want clarification. I'm not sure if I'm understanding the same thing. The way I understand it, we have repairs due on the city-owned building, being the museum as it stands, and the repairs were something in the area of $1.7 million. And we're in this situation, we're going to put in a couple of million, and we're going to get many times that back from the province and the feds. The way I see this is being fiscally responsible. We're going to have to spend it anyway, except for here. We're going to get a lot bigger bang for our buck. And if we have an opportunity here where they are going to kick in, I think we'd be silly not to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have Councillor Wing and Mayor Salsi.
I just have to declare conflict on this. My spouse is employed by the Board of Museums.
Thank you. Mayor Salsi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly don't disagree with Councillor Iononi that it is a lot of money, but just as Councillor Diodati has said, we made a submission already under Infrastructure Build Canada program, and part of that was that we would raise a little more than $3.5 million, and that submission has been made, and we're waiting an answer as we speak. As Councillor Diodati points out, Mr. Chair, we are getting good value for money in that we invest this $2 million, and the taxpayer gets $11.7 million of investment back in terms of a renewed facility. Also, it's the economic catalyst that will really kick off the historic Drummondville area that we're talking about, the historic Drummondville CIP, Community Improvement Plan, which this is all part of. So having said that, it is a lot of money, but I think the return on the investment is substantial, and I think that we have to look to our staff maybe to give us some input. Obviously, when we made our submission, I'm not sure where we sit with the approval. I know that we did have a chance to forward it on to Ottawa. I got it to the minister's desk, and I got confirmation of that. And I'm just awaiting news from Ottawa. I'm not sure when that deadline is, and possibly Mr. Dulovic can share that comment or that information with us.
Okay, I have Councillor Carriel, Iononi, and Thompson, please.
Not to repeat what the other councillors have said, just a suggestion that if the alderman's going to bring this back up, I'd like to have them here to answer questions, to talk, just make sure that they're here. And I'm assuming you're going to talk about their operating budget as well. So I'd just like to make sure that they've given the opportunity to make sure they're here.
Sure, good point. Councillor Ioannoni, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a problem with us investing in anything that gets a good bang for their buck, but if I were Ottawa and the province, I'd be taking a good long look at these numbers also, because there is only one taxpayer, and you can put $11 million or whatever the matching dollars into a building, but the residents aren't using it. So to call it a catalyst for development down there, it might be a pretty building, but nobody's using it. And right now, I'd just as soon service roads and sewers than create a pretty building that nobody's using. So we didn't have the numbers when they came here and asked for, when their operating budget was referred to this budget, and nor did we have the numbers when we asked for, when they came and asked for the $2 million. And I think all of us knew at the time money was a stretch. We all were lobbied, and I have to say I voted for it also. We didn't have this budget before us when we voted for it, and I think the budget before us is so that we take sober second looks. To me, it's like going to a sale with 30% off, but you don't have the 70% of what's left in the price anyway. If we have to spend $2 million to leverage the money that we're coming, we don't have the $2 million. Just so the residents are clear, we have to go borrow the $2 million. So the residents are going to pay that back with interest also for a facility nobody is using. So if that can be fixed, maybe in operation, maybe in marketing, but right now I equate it to putting the money in the middle of the council chamber and just starting it on fire because nobody's using it. So yes, it looks good that we all voted for a popular project, but there's zero bang to that buck. So, I mean, they're going to come and they're going to speak to us, but numbers don't lie. And maybe they have to come and explain their numbers too. And I know that that wasn't asked when they came and asked for their operating budget. I don't think in the history I've been here, we've really asked for them to justify and take a look at the numbers coming in and out because they're woefully low. So, I mean, if we're cutting and we're saying that we're going to be fiscally responsible, I don't mind leveraging money for something people use, but people aren't using this right now. So that's just my point.
To that point?
Through the chair, just to remind council, the actual project has not come forward for debate. That is, the funding as well has not yet been determined. Councillor Ioannoni is quite right. You could choose to borrow those monies, or there may be other options that are available when we review all of the capital accounts. It becomes a choice of council.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Thompson who wishes to speak.
Well, I don't think that's the councillor's intention. I think the councillor's intention is to remove the money from the budget, to bring down the deficit at this point. Anyway, I think I don't want to delay the debate because we'll have it done in February, and I'd rather have it when the people are here from the museum board. But I think if you're looking for a bang for your buck from anything to do with arts and culture and heritage, you're probably not going to get it because there's a small percentage of the population who really has an interest in that kind of thing. But the people that do have are very passionate about it, and I think we have to be very careful to have a balance between fiscal responsibility and preserving our heritage. If there's any project in Canada that is important, it has to be the Battle of 1812-14 here in this area that really is the basis of Canada. And that's probably why they are going to take this very seriously for the upcoming bicentennial at the federal level. So I don't mind if we're talking about looking at the budget and making sure that is appropriate for a municipality this size. But if you're looking for arts and culture and heritage to be the main tourism generators, and it does generate tourism, I don't think we're going to find that. But I still think we have something that's very special, unique, and we'll have to make our decisions with respect to how much the community is willing to pay for that. But very difficult to equate culture, arts, and heritage with a sanitary sewer.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Carrier.
Can we move on to a different topic now, unless someone else wants to speak on this?
Sure. Let's just find out. And I also have Mr. Dulovic that just wants to say a couple words to council.
Yeah, through the chair, I think we're just looking for a little direction from council in that, staff in conjunction with the museum staff have prepared the terms of reference for a request for proposals for architect and project management to proceed with this project. We're getting ready to advertise that. And I know there's been some discussion here tonight. Is it council's preference that we delay releasing that document or proceed with it? Because we're looking at a February 26th closing for those proposals from the various teams. And then there's a fair bit of work that's involved in preparing that. And if there's some concern that we may not go ahead with that project, I'd rather delay for a couple of weeks than have these people do a lot of work and then we turn around and cancel it.
This is the RFP for the new
This is
museum.
for the RFP for the architect and project management for the project.
Okay, Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you. If my understanding is correct, council passed the approval for that based on matching funds for the province and the feds. If we don't have those matching funds or approval, is that not a little bit premature? Because don't you have to spend money to create those? Aren't you putting that out? Like, I don't understand. Why are these steps being taken before the province and the feds have agreed to match that money?
Through the chair, this process started with the museum board coming and asking for advance dollars to get this project on the rails. So that the issue of the RFP is part of that process. Yes, the museum board is in a fundraising campaign. Yes, the council in principle pledged to assist with the funding of the project. In order to have the project completed in time for the bicentennial, the timing is not yet critical, but we need to get council's direction on this matter, because if the project is to be stopped, delayed, we do not want to be engaging in RFPs for an architect at this time.
Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you. I was told earlier that we approved $775,000 or somewhere along that line. Did we do 750? Okay, so we've approved 750 to be spent before the approvals from the federal and provincial government. So if the federal and the provincial government do not approve the monies to come to us, what happens to that $750,000?
Through the chair, it's an approval up to $750,000. This first step is the RFP process for the architect. As we move through the process, if the project looks like, number one, we don't get the funding from the Build Canada Fund, then the project is stopped. If the council is not willing to carry on with its share of the funding, the project is stopped. But all along the way, we only have approval up to $750,000 at this time for expenditures to keep the process moving.
Okay, so how much has been spent to date?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I do not have that.
And we can ask them that on February 9th because we're going to invite them.
Ask him today, he just walked in, he's out in the front.
Well, he can come in, but that doesn't bring Kathleen Powell in the financial answers that I'm looking for. Yeah, and if it's not in tomorrow's budget, and we don't have federal and provincial approval for 09 in a year that's as difficult for the feds in the province as it is us, that's money flushed down a toilet. I'm not prepared to flush money down a toilet in a recession. So did we lay the chicken before the egg, or vice versa?
I believe Mr. Dulovic has a question for you, and then I have Councillor Thompson after when you
What we
speak.
spent, I mean, it's been a staff initiative right now. It's been staff time that has prepared the RFP based on previous work we've done in regards to the convention center and the arena. So that's the time that's been involved. The next phase is the advertising. There's a few $1,000s in costs there. So we haven't incurred anything, any costs that I'm aware of, I know, on the city side with respect to preparing the RFP documents.
Okay, I have Councillor Thompson that wishes to speak.
Well, we had the exact same dialogue and discussion when Mr. West was here making his presentation. In fact, I asked him specifically the question, are we going to spend $750,000 without the approval of the federal government participating to the tune of $9 million? And he said, yes. And I said, well, that's a huge risk for a municipality to take that. And he, I think, reiterated the comment that we've been given every assurance that the money is going to be available, and I guess Mr. Nicholson has had discussions with him and gave him some comfort. So I think that's why the motion was passed. We had the same dialogue and discussion previously, which we went out on a limb because we were given some assurance that the possibility of this happening was very good.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you. And I agree with you, your comments. We went out on a limb. But the limb's quickly breaking with the budget we have before us and council's assurance to the residents that we're going to bring back a 0% increase. That's sitting in the $3.9 million that we still have to make up. And short of cutting operations and services, we have to find it somewhere. I'm simply stating we did not have the numbers before us, Councillor Thompson, that we have now that I asked the museum to provide. I tonight asked the clerk to give them to all of council so you can take a look yourself and see how low the numbers are. I guess our discussion will be invite them back for February 9th, bring the numbers that were provided to us now, and maybe in tomorrow's budget.
Wait till then.
That's right. Maybe in tomorrow's budget that money will be sitting there and the discussion can be different, but I'm not prepared to sit on that limb right now.
Okay, is there any other discussion by any members of council? Okay, staff is telling us that the RFP for the museum project is ready to go. Would council like to give staff any direction either to delay it for a while or to move forward with it? I think that's what staff is looking for. Councillor Ioannoni.
I'd like to make a motion that until we find out the dollars and cents coming to us, whether it's from the federal or the province, that it be delayed. So that would be my motion.
Okay. Do I have a seconder to that motion?
I guess I would second anything like that.
Do I have a seconder to that motion?
I heard that. I guess until it becomes a popular decision.
Okay, seeing no seconder, the motion dies. Do we have a motion for staff in regards to the RFP? Staff is looking for a motion in regards to the RFP for whether or not they should be proceeding. Councillor Diodati.
Yes, Mr. Chair, maybe we can get some clarification. What does it oblige us to if we move to this next step?
Dollar-wise?
Yeah, dollar-wise, exactly.
Chair, I think the expenses will incur is more the advertising. It's not a lot of expenses on our part. It's more on the proponents that are submitting proposals to us. And there may be some question now. He says, wait a minute, we're going to spend time, and it does take them time, and they'll probably be spending thousands of dollars in staff time in preparing these proposals. So there may be some concern. Is this project really a go? Well, we have all the outs in our typical documents that, we can cancel this project at any time, and they can't come back to us or anything like that. But what staff is concerned about, if there is this discussion and it's reported in the paper, you can be sure that these proponents out there will look at it and say, hey, have you really got a project here? So that's the only caution that I raise.
Did you get your answer? Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Can you give us some idea, is the budget discussion tomorrow? That doesn't mean that we're going to get any answer with respect to the project.
Through the chair, going back to, as the mayor said, asked earlier, when we did our application back in November, we thought by the end of January that we would have word of an announcement of what would happen with those applications. We haven't heard anything. We don't know if it's been held up because of what's going on at the federal level. We haven't heard a thing. We can look into that and see where it stands. But I think it was staff's anticipation that we would have had word by now. Based on what they said back originally back last year, that there would be some announcements. So.
When do we meet again?
Ninth.
And with regards to tomorrow's budget, I mean, there's some pre-announcements about infrastructure spending, but again, no details, just some general statements that we've seen.
Okay. Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you. And while I understand Mr. Dulevic's concern in regards to what Corey will or will not write tomorrow, the budget exercise before us is to bring up these concerns. I mean, the only thing we're doing wrong is not raising concerns if they're before us. So I don't care what he writes, and I don't care what the headline says tomorrow. I more care what we hit the residents with this year and next year than who we're popular with at the end of a budget process. So, I mean, this is why you gave us a budget. Not to be criticize that tomorrow the front page of the paper will read we're looking at cutting the museum, but what we're doing that's in the best interest of the residents. And in my mind, and I may be the only one who votes against it, this is not in the best interest of all the residents. Maybe those that are passionate, I agree, but not the overall population in Niagara Falls.
Okay, Mayor Salsi, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to reiterate the position the Council has already taken. This was presented to Council. I think we had a pretty good idea, save and except the drastic change in the last number of months in the general economy, what we were going to be faced with this year in terms of dollar spending. I think that was quite obvious to most of us. However, we've identified this as a priority project. This Council went on record as doing so. We've identified it to our MP and our MPP. Our MP has done the same thing in Ottawa. We've conveyed this, as you know, and you were present when we made this presentation at AMO to the Minister of Infrastructure provincially. So we've got to all levels of government to let them know what our priorities are. This was done in anticipation, as I said earlier, of this being a total economic generator, given the fact that we have to get ready for the bicentennial or the centennial of the War of 1812, 1814. And the economic stimulus that this is going to be is something we had contemplated all along. So the submission was made. I don't think tomorrow we're going to hear any specific detail with regard to this specific project, and I'm still waiting on when that decision would be made. And I think any change in direction of Council will be a definite change, obviously, in our direction. We've made a commitment. And so at this point, I'd say waiting, I'm not sure how long you're going to wait, but I guess I was looking for some comment as to when the Build Canada Fund project might be closed out and when the announcement would be made. I think that's the question right now in our minds.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that what this does point out is that the senior staff should have a closer tie with the museum people to keep on top of spending as pertains to whether or not we're going to get matching dollars. So I think that they should be prepared to answer the question like Councillor Iannone asked, how much have we spent to date? I think they should just have closer contact with the museum people, because if for some reason we don't get the money, we don't want to spend $1 more than we have to if we're not approved for the matching dollars. So I just think that our staff should be liaising closer with the museum board and more often, just to keep us more on top of that.
Perhaps we can have staff try to investigate on when the funding will be announced and then report back to us on the February 9th meeting. Would anyone like to make that our direction to staff? So moved by Councillor Diodati, seconded by the Mayor. Any questions or comments to that? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments? Councillor Carrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I look over this sheet that was prepared by staff, the $3.9 million use of investing in Ontario, I don't want it to give us a false sense of saving. That's a one-time deal.
Right.
I think you mentioned that at the beginning of the other meeting, which brings our remaining funding deficit down to 3.552. I think that we still have a lot of work to do. And I think that whether council is going to come up with suggestions or staff's going to come up with suggestions, we still have a lot of work to do in paring down our budget. I think that we should charge staff with coming back to us at our next meeting with some other ideas, some other suggestions, some other recommendations, so that it doesn't fall entirely upon this council to pick and choose that what we decided we're going to eliminate or cut or chop. I think we should charge the staff to come back at the next meeting with some ideas, some areas that we can look at or places to go, so that we can have some meaningful discussion and keep this going. So I think we need a motion that we ask the staff to come back with some concrete suggestions or ideas, recommendations at our next meeting, as well as what council may have.
Motion by Councillor Carrier, seconded by Councillor Fisher. And I understand the motion. Staff, however, they did make some recommendations last time. I believe that they were recommending a cut of $2.2 million out of infrastructure. They were recommending that council increase the current taxes by 2%, which would raise, I believe, just over $900,000 in revenue. And then they were recommending that the balance of it be made up from reserves. Are you suggesting different ideas other than those three?
Other ideas, new ideas,
Good.
better ideas.
I don't like those. I don't like those three either. Okay. There is a motion on the floor then, Councillor Wing.
Yes, what Councillor Carrio said is very much in line with what I was going to suggest. I've always plugged the importance of infrastructure spending because we've got to look after the infrastructure we have. If we don't, it costs us more in the long run. If we can't rehabilitate a road because we've let it go too far and we have to rebuild it instead, it costs us 4 or 5 times more than if we'd taken care of it when we should have taken care of it. Particularly in recession, infrastructure spending is important. There's the raw materials, there's the value added in construction. You know, this is one of the most sound forms of investment you can make in times like these. And I think what we need to do is keep all the infrastructure spending in the budget and look for operating efficiencies. And especially after Councillor Carrio pointed out that that 3.9 million investing in Ontario money is one time only. If 2010 is going to be just as bad as this year or worse, we've got to start finding those operating efficiencies now. I mean, that's what's going to sustain us in the future at a level of taxation that the residents and businesses in the city can afford to pay. Councillor Fisher, I think, mentioned that the library had come up with a voluntary budget reduction. I mean, if the library can do it, why can't all our departments and all our boards and committees do the same thing? Follow that lead and cut the frills. We know the frills are there. I can start citing a few examples right away, not to pick on anybody. But if you look at the Office of the Mayor and Council Support, there's $46,500 there for ads and promotional items. You know, I'm sure some of that can be cut. Do we really need to advertise in all the places we do? The Arts and Culture Committee spent $1,000 on Christmas tree decorating at Christmas time. Like, we were already getting into some pretty tough economic times when they decided to throw $1,000 at decorating Christmas trees. You know, stuff like that. One of the ones I'd really question is the Niagara Falls Art Gallery. That was a new addition. That $56,000 a year was just put in 2006, because I remember that was when I was off maternity leave. And, you know, I like the idea of user pay. If you're going to send your kid there, pay for it. You know, they got along fine all those years without that. And, you know, that's $56,000 I don't think we can afford to keep in. So there's, I'm sure, all kinds of things out there that are frills. We've got to spend on the infrastructure because that's where it really matters, always, but especially now, and start achieving those operating efficiencies because we're not going to have that $3.9 million next year to reduce our deficit with. So we've got to start cutting now, the things that aren't necessary.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from any other councillors? Councillor Fisher.
Very quickly, and thank you. Yes, the library has gone back to the table, and they will be presenting a very cut budget.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor that staff report back to council on February 9th further cuts to the operating budget in the amount of $3.55 million that deal in areas other than infrastructure, raising taxes, or taking money out of reserves. Mr. Burton.
Through the chair, we took the understanding from Alderman Carrio that the $3.9 million represents yet just a one-time funding source. It's our understanding is that you're looking for different ideas for a much larger target, which may actually work itself out over 2 or 3 years. This would be what staff would look at and try to bring forward for your consideration. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. Everyone understand the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Any other councillors have any other comments in regards to budget discussions? Councillor Mace.
I'm just looking at some of these figures. Like, we're just given the totals of what these budgets are. And really, in the internal workings, I'm sure when you see a figure here of what it is, perhaps maybe they can cut a few thousand out of certain areas. And I think that's what we're looking for, is it not? That, like, we're not going to shut everything down. It's just a matter of paring down some of the costs. Is that correct? I think that's what Councillor Carrio's motion was about. Cutting back, not eliminating anything, but cutting back. I think that's basically what we want to do.
Okay. Thank you. Any other councillors have any other comments? If not, is there any new business for committee? Seeing none, motion for adjournment. Motion by Councillor Diodati, seconded by Councillor Iononi. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.